Yeah, so I'll do when I know we're live, I'll do a little introduction, and then I was going to ask you to just say a little bit about the book, if that's okay, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, perfect.
So we are live on Facebook. Good evening, and welcome to Exeter Library's latest in conversation. And this evening, I'm delighted to be welcomed by Sheila O'Flanagan. These events are free, but if you'd like to give a donation to Libraries Unlimited, which is the charity that runs the 54 libraries and mobile libraries in Devon and Torbay, there is a link in the chat. And this evening we are posting to over 30 libraries from Honiton to Holsworthy. So hello to all the other libraries watching. And if you'd like to ask a question, please pop in the chat for the Exeter Library feed. Unfortunately, it doesn't work if you post on any of your libraries ones, but if you post on the Exeter Library one, I will ask Sheila the questions. So Sheila is the author of over 20 novels, including The Wife Who Ran Away, Her Husband's Mistake, The Hideaway, Someone Special, Bad Behaviour, and Yours Faithfully. I'm not going to read them all because we would be here for a while. Which have been huge bestsellers. Over 30, I think it said, were bestsellers in the UK, or you had bestsellers for 30 of them. I imagine that's both paperback and hardback, I assume. So prior to taking the decision to write full-time, Sheila pursued a very successful career in banking and finance. In her spare time, she plays competitive badminton and is currently a director of the Irish Sports Council. So she's also, her love for writing blossomed after curating stories about relationships in their many forms. So good evening, and thank you for joining us, Sheila. I said, when I was writing my questions, I remembered that it was about, I think it was 7 years ago, pretty much around this time where I first met you, was when you came to Exeter Library with Veronica Henry and Jill Mansell.
And Jill, I remember that, yes, and it was great, yeah.
And that was, I think it was June 2014. It was when we just reopened the library. So, and it was our big, one of our first big in conversation events. So interestingly, I'm going to be doing an event with Jill and Veronica next month. So it's all come around full circle again, which is great.
That was a great event, and I remember coming down on the train and everything, and it was all really exciting because I haven't, I'd never been in the Devon, Cornwall area before, so it was lovely, and Exeter Library was great. We had a fantastic time. I'm sure we behaved quite badly afterwards. I'm trying to recall.
I know you went off in a very sort of flash taxi with your...
Yeah, we did.
So your latest book, 3 Weddings and a Proposal, which I have a proof here. You may have, you've probably got the shiny, you've got the nice, is it green? Yeah, lovely green cover, isn't it? I've got the blue and yellow, but as was out, was it last week? Last week was the 20th of May.
Yeah, last Thursday, yeah.
So would you like to tell us a bit about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, 3 Weddings and a Proposal, which actually has quite a romantic sounding name. It's not necessarily a very romantic book in a lot of ways, because it has my what people are calling, my empowering heroine in it is Delphine, who is actually a woman who is perfectly happy being single, and she's not somebody who's saying I'm perfectly happy being single but secretly looking for Mr. Right. She's just perfectly happy being single. She has a great job, she has her own house by the sea, and she is actually a really competent woman. And I wanted to write that, because a lot of times, even in my books and in other books, when they're about women, we're meeting women at a very vulnerable time in their lives, or, they are quite vulnerable. And I wanted to write about somebody who was absolutely not at all and was very sure of herself and very confident. But of course, she can't sail through the entire book like that. You still have to have an, and what happens is, I suppose initially we do learn a little bit about her and her relationships with her family, who are not quite as convinced as she is that she's happy being single, and who are on at her a little bit to settle down, and she's looking for a +1 for her brother's wedding, and that's becoming a bit problematic. And so there's those kind of things going on. But when she does go to the wedding and she finds the perfect +1 to bring along, and certainly as far as her family is concerned, when she does go to the wedding, she gets some news at this wedding that really turns her life upside down and just knocks her sideways. And so, even though she's strong and confident and all of those things, she gets such a shock, and this is such devastating news for her, that really she has to sit back and reevaluate her life and reevaluate what she wants to do and the things that she thinks are important. And I think probably, in writing the book and thinking about the theme of the book, what I wanted to write about was being true to yourself. When things happen and when people are making judgments on you and about you, and when everything is really difficult, it's finding the core inside yourself that's important. So that's what I wanted to write about. The book itself, obviously when I'm writing books, I write books as entertainment and I want people to have a good time reading them. So there's some lovely things in it. There's nice jewelry in it. There's trips to Mallorca and there are parties, and of course there are 3 weddings as well. So it's not all kind of introspection and wondering about yourself. But so hopefully it's an enjoyable read.
No, and I really like Delphine. She's, like you say, she's a strong, independent woman. She's confident and she's successful, and she doesn't need a man to make her any more of those things, does she? So she's quite happy in her own skin, and I think that was really refreshing, because like you said, women do get sort of portrayed to, or have a pressure, aren't they? She's under pressure from her family. And she sort of feels a bit like she's a bit of a failure to them. Not that she's unhappy with what her lot, but she sort of feels that she's sort of not ticking the boxes that they want to. And I thought that was quite interesting, because I feel that women are quite often under scrutiny, aren't they, to get married. And then when they get married, they're like, have a child. And then when you've had one child, they're like, when you're going to have your next one. And it just goes on and on like that. And was that something that made you sort of think, actually, I want to write about this woman in a different way?
Very much so, actually. Yeah. I mean, because I do think as women, an ordinary woman in the street or a very famous woman, whether you're talking about just somebody going to the shops or whether you're talking about Michelle Obama or something, judgment is made all the time, which is, yeah, you're happy, but you'd be happier if you did this. Yeah, you look great, but why don't you cut your hair? Yeah, And interestingly, last week when I was scrolling through my Twitter feed, there was a post from a woman who was just approaching her 40s, and she put up this post, and she was in her graduation gown, and she was going, "Yay to me! I've graduated, and I'm delighted, and I'm delighted with the choice that I made in my life, and all this." And then almost immediately somebody posted up and said, "Oh, but you can't say that you can have it all. You can have children as well. And my children are the most important things to me." And I'm going, but this woman is happy. This woman is happy the way she is. And why do we always want to say to women, if you're happy the way you are, you could be happier doing something else? It's a bit like the makeup artist, but you look great.
It is, and I think I guess that sort of, women being married and having children is very historical, isn't it? But it does see that sort of side of it does seem to have stuck. And I think I sort of wonder whether that's, as women get more and more sort of empowered to be independent and not reliant on a partner, then that, well, it might, because men don't get it. They get it to some extent, I guess, but not to the extent that women get it.
I agree. And I think sadly for men, actually, that they're becoming more judgmental about each other as well, because it's not a good place to be in. But I definitely think women are used to that sort of constant scrutiny and constant questioning about themselves. And you're right, like some of it is legacy stuff from not that long ago, to be honest. No. But it takes a long time to work your way through that and to get confident. And I suppose in some ways that's why I wanted to write about somebody who had done that and was confident and is confident. But again, when something difficult happens, you do, regardless, I think you do kind of retreat into yourself and say, "Oh my God, am I doing the right things? Am I sure about this?"
So Delphine, she's sort of she's, like you say, she's in a successful job, and she gets made sort of I won't give too much away, but she gets made a director of her company, which she's got a great boss who sort of treats her as an equal, and so she really does sort of have it all. But then, like you say, something happens which I'm not going to give away, and like you say, she has to relook at her life. When you sort of look about, when you write about your sort of strong women and the independent women, do the women become part of you as you develop them? And are the strengths important for you to portray as that?
Well, every character, when I'm writing them, and obviously my main characters are the most important in the book and the most important to me. Every character comes, I think you have to reach into a part of yourself to write them. And even when you're not like them, because some characters I'm more like than others, or have more of me in them than others. You still reach inside yourself to find some part of you that empathizes with them or understands the situation they're in and how they feel, and you use those emotions. And I can often use emotions that I might feel about something else to put in my book, about a different situation. So I think as a writer, all of the characters that you write, you have to feel them as well as write them. You have to be emotionally involved with them.
So because you had a successful career in finance before you became a writer, and you actually didn't become a full-time writer until you were in your 30s. Did your own experiences as a woman working in sort of the financial industry and that type of job sort of give you the inspiration to write about these sort of strong women? Do you think that you were one of those confident, strong women, I think I'm saying?
Well, I think I tried to portray myself as one. I'm not sure. I don't quite as much confidence as Delphine has, but at the same time, I did know that there were certain things that I was good at, and I was happy to take responsibility for the things that I was good at. I think what we're not so good at, and I wasn't until later on in my career, is actually saying, I can do that. I am good at that. I think as women, we stand back. It's really, really interesting, actually, because I had two people came into my department, and I asked one male and one female, and I asked them both where what were they looking for from the job and what were they looking for from the organization. And the guy said to me, well, I'm hoping to get Mick's job. And Mick was my boss, so I'm kind of thinking, okay, you're going to step right over me and go straight. And but look, he was really upfront about it. And the girl who was better qualified than him, for starters, and really intelligent, when I asked her, she said, I want to do really well at my job and I want people to see how good I am. And I thought, she wants people to notice that she's good. He doesn't care. He just wants the other job. And so it's a different way of looking at things. And I that really stuck with me, because that's a long time ago now, but it really, really stuck with me as a difference in the way men and women approach things. And when I'm writing, occasionally that conversation, that moment comes back.
There is that thing, isn't there, about when when a man applies for a job, they'll sort of look at the job application and sort of think if they can do sort of 50% of it, they'll go for it. But a woman will be like looking at 80-90% before they'll go for it, because they just don't have that confidence.
Yeah. And I don't know even that it's confidence. Like, well, I suppose it is confidence in a way, but it's just give it a go. Give it a go. Yeah. I mean, what's the worst that can happen is they're going to say you're not qualified, and you go, oh, well, yeah, but I can learn on the job. You know what I mean? So when I was in finance, I really did try to mentor, I suppose, and bring on the women in the firm that I worked with, and some of them did go on to be far more successful than me, which is great.
That is good. That's really great. So when you didn't, like I said before, you didn't become a writer until you were in your 30s, and that was quite a big career change for you to go from sort of finance to writing. What advice would you give anybody out there who's considering, making a big change like that?
Well, I think you have to believe in yourself. So it is a confidence thing in a lot of ways. But you also have to say to yourself, well, like I said to those two people, what do you want to be doing? What are you looking for in the future? And for me, even though finance was my job and I was good enough at it, and I was doing okay, it was not the thing that I woke up every morning going, thank God I work in a bank. I just didn't. But I had always wanted to write, and I always, I did write. I know I was in my late 30s before my first book was published, but I had written a lot before then. Obviously none of it went very far, but I had written occasional I'd written quite a number of short stories, and I'd written different bits and pieces, and so it was something that I used to do as a hobby. And but inside me, I had always kind of hankered after writing the book, and so eventually I said to myself, you know what, you're just talking about this or thinking about this. You don't actually have to do it, because they don't magically appear on the shelves, you know.
No.
So that was it. And I like, I had written two or three books before I really said, you know what, I can do this. And I can make this career change. I am making this career change. You have to back yourself. Yeah.
Was it a gradual thing for you? Did you like get published and then sort of give up your job, or did you go the whole sort of hog and give it up and then
No, because actually what happened was I wrote the book while I was still working, and then I had sent it off to a publisher, and they had said, oh, well, we might be interested in it if you rewrite it, you know. So I kind of thought, I'll rewrite it while I'm still working, you know. And then they said, yes, we are interested, but we won't be able to publish it for about 1.5 years or maybe 2 years. And I thought, well, okay, I mean, I can't just give up my job on that basis. So while I was waiting, I wrote another book, because I thought, well, okay, let's try. So that was actually how it worked for me. And obviously my first books were just published in Ireland. And so even though they were very successful in Ireland, you could not give up your job. Because like our population is like Liverpool or something, you know, so you couldn't give up your job in that. But then when they got published in the UK, when it started to move on, then I said, oh my God, yeah, I can do this.
That's great. I think it's it's a really sort of inspirational story. And I think you know, going from, there's a lot of people out there that sort of think about making that big step, and but I think, like you say, it's having that confidence, but also having the sort of conviction, isn't it, that it's something that you really want to do and that you love. Did you so this book, I believe you wrote in lockdown?
Oh God, yeah, I started it. You know, I had the idea for it, and I started it before lockdown, and at the when I started it, actually there was this vague talk about the virus in China, you know, so vague and so far apart, and I assumed it would be like swine flu or anything else, so it never even occurred to me. And so I had written, you know, I'd done quite a bit into it, and then suddenly everything was changing, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, I'm writing a book about big events, you know, in lockdown. This is not a good idea. And so I did actually have to, I had to make a decision, and I said, well, I'm going to set it in a post-lockdown world. Because I said to myself, you know, okay, this is horrible at the moment, but it's not going to last forever. And I didn't want to write about lockdown, but I did when I was going through the wedding scenes, particularly. But I think it was the first wedding that I had to kind of rejig. I deliberately, I looked at it, and there was lots of hugging and stuff like that. I mean, cut the hugging. No. So I just did a few little kind of tweaks here and there to you know, because when somebody said, if somebody said she hugged him hello or something, I'm thinking, okay, even in 2 years' time, I think that's still something that's going to be in our brains. That's going to be difficult. So I took out those bits, but I still wanted. I mean, I do believe, and it is fortunately happening, and hopefully, you know, by this time next year, we'll be completely in a better place. I wanted to believe, and I wanted to write books where people were still doing the things that we love to do, and you know, we were having the relationships that we want to have.
It was nice. It was nice to read, because I think I know you like to travel, don't you? And has the lockdown sort of impacted on your writing? Because I know it's impacted on my reading quite a lot, whereas I really enjoyed this one, because we did go to Mallorca and we did go to a wedding, and we were able to do things that we've not been able to do for 15 months. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely found it harder to concentrate on writing, you know, whereas normally I would be good at that. But I realized actually what happened to me was, what I missed was the you know, going out to cafes and bumping into people and overhearing conversations, and those little things that really trigger a lot of stuff in my head, you know. And I hear people, you know, on the train or on the bus or in a shop or something, and I hear them talking, and I'm looking at them, and always, you know, stuff is going on in my head. So I had none of that for this, and I found that really disconcerting. And so I think that kind of held me back a bit. But overall, I tried to kind of lose myself in writing the book and put myself in a place and believe that everything was going to be all right in the end, both for my characters and for ourselves.
Yeah, no, it's been a really difficult time. I've got a question from Serena who said, hello, Karen and Sheila. Thank you for this event. Do you have any writing quirks or habits, or both?
I don't. I deliberately made myself not have writing quirks and habits because I reckoned, I would be getting really superstitious about things, but I actually don't talk about the book I'm writing much to anybody until after it's written. And I would be the only person I talk to about it is my editor. So, a lot of writers will give parts of their books around to friends to read and everything, and I won't do that. So I don't do any of that. But I don't have any really specific quirks. I do like to do my editing when I'm doing the actual hard copy editing. I do like to do that with Muji pens. Because they're all colorful and everything, but it's not essential.
Do you write on a computer or do you write by hand? I know Jill still writes by hand, but
how Jill does that, I do not know. I speak to Jill. I'm in awe of her. Beautiful ink and beautiful pens and everything, and she has just the most gorgeous collection of stuff. But I could not. I absolutely could not. So I write on my computer, and that works for me because I edit as I write, or I change things as I write a lot. And so I think if I was doing that by pen, really I would just have crossed out stuff all over. It's impossible to know what I was doing. So yeah, on my computer.
You so you've written over 20 books, and you've got a huge fan following, haven't you? So people are waiting for your next book to come out. Do you feel more pressure to deliver than when you started out, or do the ideas become easier now and you're more confident, and so you're just like, okay, well, I've written it, it'll be
if only. I mean, I don't feel a pressure from readers. I mean, all the readers are lovely. People that get in touch are fantastic, and I don't feel a pressure. When they say, "Are you writing the next book?" I don't feel a pressure from them, but internally you do kind of think to yourself, "Oh my goodness!" Every time you sit down to write a book, there's a bit of you that says, "Will I be able to do it? Is this the one where it's all going to go horribly wrong and I'm not going to be able to do it?" So, I mean, I think there's always that anxiety in yourself about down to write a new book, and I mean, I think I get a lot of ideas, but filtering them out to pick the idea that will actually work. Some ideas are great, but then really when you think about them a bit longer, you think, you say to yourself, I'm not going to be able to develop that into something really, really strong. And sometimes there have been ideas that stick with me and they're at the back of my mind. And then, it takes time for me to say, oh, I know how I can write that now. And it might be 2 or 3 books later, I come back to it and I say, yeah, now I know how I can write that one.
Do you, when you have a sort of an idea, does it sort of vary how you start, or do you have quite a sort of strict formula of like character, place, idea, or you just you just go with it?
Part of me wishes that I had a formula because I think I would be more efficient as a writer. I don't know. I can't remember whose quote it is, where they say that writing a book is like driving in the fog, and the headlights are on. You can just about see enough in front of you to kind of keep going, and that's it. They say, are you a planner or a pantser?
Yeah,
I am so a pantser, and I wish I was a planner because I think I would get the books written much faster. But I have the idea and I think about it for a while, and I know what I sort of know what I want to happen or where it might go, but honestly, the reader, when they're turning the page, is doing it the exact same way as me when I was writing it, because I have no clue what I'm doing most of the time.
I think, yeah, that sort of planner and pantser thing is so, it's really funny because, when you talk to people, they are definitely one or the other. And actually some people are like, oh, I could never be a planner. And then some people are like, oh no, I'm far too much of a control freak. I need to plan everything. So it's really interesting how that sort of, comes out, and how, yeah, and there is no, I don't think there's, I think it's split right down the middle, actually. I think there is sort of 50-50.
But the only thing I do on the planning side of it, and that's not, and this isn't actually planning is, but as the story develops and the characters develop and there, more and more people come in, I do a sort of a family tree of the main character and the people around her. So as I have an idea, so I don't introduce, some weird uncle, you know what I mean?
That you see once and then he never appears again.
So I do that, but that's the extent of my planning. And then sometimes I write little notes and I can't actually read them, so that doesn't work.
When you sit down to write a book, do you write it in, do you sort of give so much of do you have like so many months of the year where you write and then you don't write, or do you sort of spread it over, or does it depend?
A little bit, it depends. I mean, there are periods of time when I'm very consciously writing and I'm caught up in it. But then I suppose as sometimes life gets in the way, as it did with the pandemic, life gets in the way and everything, you think, oh I'm going to be writing and I have a clear calendar to write, and then other stuff happens and you have to make allowances for that. But I mean, my main writing time is my main writing time for sort of first drafty stuff is the winter months, because I say to myself, okay, what else am I going to be doing? Lock myself away and write my book and hopefully take my character somewhere nice as well. And so I do a lot of the hard slog in the winter.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a nice time. Then you can have the summer off, because your books generally sort of come out sort of earlier in the year, like this sort of May sort of time, don't they? So
yeah. So it has kind of turned into quite a nice cycle for me.
Yeah. So do you is it sort of one a year that you do at the moment, or is it?
At the moment, yes, it's one a year, and I mean, obviously for 25 years or thereabouts, it has worked. Whether it will continue to work in the future, I don't know, but at the minute, that's the way I've done things.
So I'm very conscious about not asking you about what you're writing next now, but I assume you are writing something, but I won't ask you what that is.
Yes, I am, and I have in another talk, and so I will with this talk. The only thing that I will say is that the main character's name is Eden. So that's the only information. But I'm enjoying writing her story.
Good. And because obviously, that you've been in probably lockdown even more so in a way. Is Ireland still, is your restrictions quite strict?
Well, we're starting to lift them now, and I think we're going to be able to have the outdoor eating from next week, and then indoor eating comes a little bit after that. But yeah, everybody's gone bananas by now. I mean, we did have a very strict lockdown.
Yeah, so you're further behind. So we started the eating inside about 2 weeks ago, so we're a little bit ahead of you. So yeah, so
another couple of weeks. But then we were behind you with the vaccination rollout. So I think that's probably what's driving the timeline. But fortunately, our vaccination rollout has picked up pace now. So
that's good.
Anyway, fingers crossed for all of us.
So have you? What have you been enjoying reading over the sort of last few months?
Well, when I'm writing myself, I usually I read a lot of crime and I read a lot of thrillers, and so that's mainly what I've been reading. I'm absolutely useless at remembering the names of the books. I should have brought them, because I have a tower of books on the side of my not dresser, I don't know, filing cabinet, I guess. So and I can see them, but can I think of the names of them? Absolutely not. But I read I'm actually reading a gory thriller at the moment, which is called The Intrusions, I think, or The Intruders. And I do quite like police procedurals and things like that. So I like people like Peter James and I like Ian Rankin, and I like those kind of things.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they plot and I don't. Do you know? I might enjoy. And then I've read a couple of really lovely proofs. There's a new Irish writer. Her name is Nisha Dolan,
Oh,
N-A-O,
yes, I know.
Nisha Dolan. And she wrote, her book is brilliant, and I really enjoyed that. Like everybody, well, obviously it's last year now, but I loved Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet. I thought
that was amazing.
Superb, superb book. Probably your library readers are ahead of me in the reading stakes at the moment. And I've read one. There's another guy who writes the kind of legal thrillers. His name is Steve Kavanagh.
Oh yeah, I've seen him in the library. I've seen him in the library.
And I enjoy his books as well. And then I read one which is really, really interesting. And I'm, even as we were talking, I'm desperately trying to recall the name of it. But it's about a Black family in the South in America, and like he's involved in certain criminal activity because there is nothing else to do. And oh God, I will when we're finished, I will send you the name of this book.
Okay.
It is so good. It's really, really good, and it's the perspective is so different from what I would write about, what I would normally read even, but it's excellent. So I'll definitely send the name of that.
Yeah, send that one through. So you definitely read something, read very differently to what you write. Do you read other authors in your sort of genre?
Oh gosh, yes, yeah, I do. I mean, I love Sophie Kinsella and I love Beth O'Leary. I think they're for comic writing. I think they're great. And Jill, of course, I would read Jill, and she's just a lovely, warm, friendly writer. All of her books are just
they are lovely. They are like a big cuddle, aren't they?
Yes, they really are. So I love her. And then, of course, in Ireland, there are writers. We have Marion Keyes, who I know well, and Kathy Kelly and Patricia Scanlon. So, I mean, I do, of course, read my own contemporaries as well, but I leave those generally until the summer when I'm not writing myself, because I don't want to get their writing in my head, and they're going in my head. So that's why, it's a gore and disaster in the winter when I'm writing myself, and then lovely light. Happy reading. Actually, I think it's now being called the same here, but in Sweden all our books are called uplit. And I do like to read uplifting literature, because I do think that life is bad enough sometimes, and it's really good to read things that are inspiring and uplifting and cheerful.
I think because I think it's sort of the women's fiction, as sort of the genre women's fiction, was often called chick lit, which has moved away from that, thankfully. And I think it is becoming sort of more uplifting. And also, when I can't remember, I was talking to you the other day, that they said that they it was Heidi Swain and and she was saying that she's got quite a few sort of male readers, who are sort of truckers and things. So I think everybody wants some sort of nice uplifting fiction at the moment that's got some, I think we've had enough of sadness and upset, haven't we? So
I think we have. Actually, one of my most amazing letters I got was actually from a guy in a Russian prison.
Wow.
And he was in prison for quite a serious assault, and he read one of my books because he was learning English and he was reading in English, and he read one of my books, and the letter he sent to me was saying that, having read it, he wanted to be a better father for his son. And I thought, that's isn't it? But it just shows, that we do have this thing where we go women's fiction, or, well, we don't say men's fiction, obviously. No,
we don't, do we?
We don't. So we put it into a thing where you think, oh, it's going to be, I don't know what people think women's fiction really means, and yet actually women's fiction is generally about, or concentrates on relationships, and they are the most important things. It doesn't have to be romantic relationships, but the relationships people have with each other, which is the most important thing in the whole world.
Absolutely.
So yeah. But anyway, I was just really moved by
I think that's amazing. I think, it just shows, doesn't it, that how much reading can touch people. And I think particularly in libraries we sort of know that, but it's really sometimes it's difficult to ever know that. So when you get a letter like that that's from somebody who it's really touched, that's amazing. Because I imagine your books, you know, they've been read by millions of people, but you don't get those sorts of letters for everybody, do you? So
No. Oh, there's another good book that I read recently and seen since we're having the library talk. It's called The Reading List. Have you seen that?
Oh, somebody else said that one as well. That it's out
That's
in July, I think.
I think so, yeah, and it's set around the library as well. So and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah, that one's on my list. It sounds on my list for reading. I mean, not like I've got much to read. It's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you this evening, Sheila, again, and I wish you all the best with 3 Weddings and a Proposal, because it is an amazing book and I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely be recommending it in the library, and it is available to buy from our friends at Crediton bookshop, which is now called The Bookery, and there's a link for that on the page, and you can also order it from Devon Libraries or Torbay Libraries via our website. So thank you again, Sheila. It's been great chatting to you, and our next In Conversation is next Wednesday, which is the 3rd of June, and I will be talking to the lovely Matt Kane about his book The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle. So if you'd like to join us then, that will be at 7 o'clock on the 3rd of June. Thank you again, Sheila. It's been great, and I wish you all the luck with the book and the next book, and hopefully that you'll be able to go out and have something nice to eat soon as well, or even indoors or outdoors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.